Palki Sharma. Is Donald Trump preparing to attack Iran? He says he's watching closely. But on the ground, American troops are being repositioned. Key personnel are on the move. Across West Asia, the stakeholders are gearing up. So tonight, we'll try and decode the signals to see what is coming. Meanwhile, the US president is also discussing potential successors in Tehran. And according to him, Reza Pahlavi is not one of them. We'll tell you why. Also, is this about oil too? Is Trump angling for Iran's oil? American energy giants certainly are. Also on the show, why the US has frozen immigrant visas for 75 countries, how Greenland plans to defend itself from a potential US takeover, why Nepal's oldest political party has split and what does it mean for them just before the election, why Pakistan's bet on stable coins to appease Donald Trump could backfire, does India have too many public holidays, and why foreign tourists are picking Trivandrum as a top destination in India. All this and more coming up. The headlines first. Donald Trump threatens to invoke the Insurrection Act over the protests in Minnesota. The law allows domestic deployment of the military. Protests erupted in Minnesota after a federal agent shot dead a woman last week. Yesterday, an immigration agent shot and injured a man, triggering further unrest. Singapore's Prime Minister fires the leader of the opposition. Lawrence Wong cited a criminal conviction for the decision as he called on the opposition to nominate a successor. Singapore is one of few democracies where the ruling party holds direct power to choose an opposition leader. Russia expels a British diplomat after accusing him of being a spy. London has dismissed the allegations as, and I'm quoting, malicious and baseless. The Kremlin views the UK as one of the most hostile Western states. Relations between the two countries have been virtually frozen since the Ukraine war began in 2022. Uganda's election hit by technical delays amid an internet blackout and a police crackdown on opposition leaders. President Yoweri Museveni says he faced problems while voting. 81-year-old Museveni is expected to win a 7th term in office and extend his 40-year rule. Top leaders of the European Union will be India's chief guests on Republic Day this year. During their visit, the European Council President and the European Commission President will hold talks with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. They will also co-chair an India-EU summit as the two sides look to seal a trade deal. And the Bangladesh Cricket Board sacks their director after players threatened to boycott their Premier League. Recently, the director had made derogatory comments about the players. This comes amid Dhaka refusing to play their T20 World Cup games in India. It's a new year, but the same question. Will Donald Trump attack Iran? We asked the same question in late May and June of 2025, and back then, Trump did attack. More than 6 months later, we are back to square one, this time with even more at stake. So what is the answer? Is US President Donald Trump going to topple the Iranian regime, or will he climb down? Let's look at the signals that we're seeing. Yesterday, the US and the UK withdrew some troops from West Asia, mostly from the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. Now, this is usually done as a precaution. You withdraw troops to prevent casualties. On the same day, the US called in a carrier strike group. And we told you about this yesterday. The US does not have an aircraft carrier in West Asia, so the Pentagon is redeploying one, the USS Abraham Lincoln. It was sailing in the South China Sea this week, but reports say it is heading to West Asia now. If true, this would also suggest an escalation. Then this morning, Iran shut off its airspace. All aircraft were asked to fly around Iran. Again, this is a precautionary move. You shut the airspace ahead of conflicts. If you look at these three moves, it does not look good. It seems like an attack is looming. But here's the thing. We have seen signs of de-escalation too. First, from President Donald Trump himself. He now says Iran has stopped the killings on the street. He also said that Iran would not execute the jailed protesters. Overall, it's a conciliatory tone.
We have been informed by very important sources on the other side, and they've said the killing has stopped and the executions won't take place. There was supposed to be a lot of executions today, and that the executions won't take place. And we're going to find out. I mean, I'll find out after this. You'll find out.
Does this mean military action is now off the table against Iran?
Well, we're going to watch and see what the process is, but we were given a very good statement by people that are aware of what's going on.
Iran has corroborated this. Their foreign minister spoke to US media yesterday. He said no executions have been planned.
There is no any hanging today or tomorrow or whatever. I can tell you, I'm confident about that. There is no plan for hanging at all.
This is a climb down by Iran. Their judiciary had promised swift justice. In fact, the first execution was slated for yesterday or today, but as of now, it has not happened. Plus, Iran has reopened its airspace. Commercial carriers are free to fly over Iran again. Does this mean that the danger is over? One Iranian official seems to think so. That's Tehran's ambassador to Pakistan, Reza Pahlavi. He says Donald Trump has informed Iran that he would not attack. A similar message was reportedly exchanged between Israel and Iran too. This was back in December when the unrest started. Israel and Iran exchanged a message via Russia. Israel told Iran that it would not strike first. So the fact is, we have mixed signals here. Some signs clearly point to an escalation, others point to a de-escalation. The question is, what will actually happen? Well, with Donald Trump, you never know. He's known to use misdirections. Just think back to what happened in June. The US and Iran were gearing up for nuclear talks, but Israel attacked right before the talks began. And this was not the only misdirection. In the month of June, Trump was weighing a military attack on Iran. He said he would take a decision in 2 weeks. He lulled Iran into a sense of security, and then he attacked. So don't go by the US president's statements. He uses his words to misdirect his enemies. Also, you must consider how the US military works. They never launch a premature operation. First, they put all the firepower in place. Then they plan for all eventualities, and only then do they strike. Consider the attack on Venezuela this month. First, you had CIA intelligence operations. Then you had months of build-up. You had destroyers, carriers, and frigates sailing in. Only then did the attack happen. And that was against Venezuela, which is a much weaker military. Iran is a different ballgame altogether. It is a battle-tested military with a huge missile stock. You can't attack Iran on a whim. You need to have all the pieces in place. And frankly, a lot also depends on what Trump wants to achieve here. In June, the goal was clear. Strike the nuclear plants and leave. Regime change was not on the table then. But this time, you cannot shoot and scoot. If Trump decides to attack, he has two broad options. One is to decapitate the regime, basically take out the top military and clerical leaders. After that, he can hope the regime will fracture. It will fracture within fighting, power tussle, and finally a collapse. That's one option. The other option is to strike military and strategic centers like missile launchers, nuclear sites, and missile silos. Now, this would have twin objectives. For starters, it could reignite the protests. Right now, people are scared of another crackdown. Most of them have returned to their homes. But if the US attacks, maybe it could bring them out again. And secondly, it will weaken Iran's long-term survivability. Even if the regime does not collapse now, it will be weakened. Meaning, the next protest could topple it, could topple the Iranian regime. Of course, all these options must account for one factor. Iran knows exactly what is coming. Any attack will come with significant blowback, both to US allies and to US assets. Does Donald Trump have the appetite for that risk? I guess we'll find out soon enough.
BBC, we want Reza Pahlavi.
The last time Reza Pahlavi was in Iran, it was a very different country. The revolution had not happened, the Ayatollahs had not taken over, his father, the Shah, was still ruling Tehran. But that was in 1978. It's been 45 years since then, and today's Iran is very, very different. Yet, Reza Pahlavi suddenly wants to return. He wants to go back to his homeland. Why? Because he thinks the regime would fall and he would take the crown.
The world today stands with your national revolution and admires your courage. In particular, President Trump, as the leader of the free world, has closely observed your indescribable bravery and has declared that he is ready to help you. Do not abandon the streets. My heart is with you. I know that I will soon be by your side.
So Reza Pahlavi is hoping that this is his chance. Like I said, he's the son of Iran's last Shah. He was named Crown Prince at the age of 7, and he still commands some nostalgic loyalty. There is a section of monarchists in Iran who want him back. There were videos of protesters chanting his name. So this is the right moment for Reza Pahlavi. He's been waiting in the wings for decades. He's already 65 years old, so if the regime falls, he wants to take over.
A lot of people are ready to step in. There's a counterpart outside that in a sort of hybrid system can help one another in that process. But we are constantly in dialogue with them, preparing that transfer. So as soon as this regime collapses, we can immediately engage those forces within.
Reza Pahlavi seems confident. He is already dreaming of a post-Ayatollah Iran. But there's one person who does not share his vision and his optimism. And that person is Donald Trump. Look at what he said in an interview.
He seems very nice, but I don't know how he'd play within his own country. And we really aren't up to that point yet. I don't know whether or not his country would accept his leadership. And certainly if they would, that would be fine with me.
Trump sounds unconvinced. He calls Reza Pahlavi nice, but wonders if Iranians would actually accept him. In Trump's speak, that is not an endorsement, that's more like a shrug. And Reza Pahlavi knows this, which is why he's doing something very deliberate right now. He is selling a vision, a post-Islamic Republic Iran that sounds almost designed for Western ears. He promises normal ties with the United States, immediate recognition of Israel, an end to Iran's nuclear ambitions, no more support for Hamas and Hezbollah, and a bigger peace framework, sort of like expanding the Abraham Accords. In short, he's saying this, that a free Iran will be America's ally. And this is not accidental messaging. This is Reza Pahlavi trying to reassure Donald Trump. He wants to show that regime change won't mean chaos. But here is the uncomfortable question. Does Iran actually want Reza Pahlavi? We ask because Iran's opposition is complicated. It is not one movement or one ideology or vision. It's a mix of liberals, leftists, students, ethnic groups, monarchists and Republicans. The only thing that unites them is their anger against the current regime. Beyond that, they do not really align with each other. Some admire Pahlavi as a symbol, but not a ruler. Some see him as a bridge to the world. And others see him as the man who left. More importantly, he has no organization on the ground, no party, no base. Also, what he's promising is easier said than done. For instance, normalization with Israel. Pahlavi may pitch it, but will the people agree, the people of Iran? And I guess that's the problem with revolutions or regime changes. It's hard to figure out what comes after. Everyone agrees that the Islamic Republic is brutal and corrupt, but they don't agree on what should replace it. And this is not just an Iran problem. Take any country, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan, remove the villain, and then what? Who governs? Who controls the streets? Who writes the constitution? It's a challenge because power vacuums are dangerous and legitimacy cannot be imported. Look at what's happening in Venezuela. The US captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro. The face of the opposition was Maria Corina Machado. She won the Nobel for standing up to Maduro. She wanted to take over when he left, but she could not. Maduro's deputy still controls the strings, and she has the Trump administration support, the deputy. The same thing could happen to Reza Pahlavi. He may think that he can rule Iran, But at this point, he neither has the confidence of Washington nor does he command loyalty at home. Because why would the Iranian military listen to him, or the government, or the people? He's been out of Iran for nearly half a century. Why would they choose him? So where does that leave Reza Pahlavi? Well, he's certainly not irrelevant, but his rise is not inevitable either. For now, he's just a symbol waiting for a moment, and symbols alone do not build nations. Power and legitimacy do, and right now, Reza Pahlavi has neither.
I say, make Iran great again. You know, it was a great country until these monsters came in and took it over. We get oil prices down even further. We have it down at about a 6-year low, 7-year low, but we're going to get it down.
So Trump is building pressure. The militaries are on high alert. Is this about Iran's oil? The US president has not said it in so many words, but there's one priority that he keeps talking about over and over again. He keeps talking about how he remains laser focused on keeping oil prices low.
Winning is a good thing. We're going to work with Venezuela. We'll make that country very strong again. We'll get oil prices down even further. We have it down at about a 6-year low, 7-year low, but we're going to get it down.
Trump says he will keep oil prices in check. It was one of his campaign promises in 2024. He said he'd cut energy prices by half. He urged OPEC, the oil cartel, to pump more oil. And who can forget his slogan, drill, baby, drill? It became Donald Trump's rallying call to boost oil production. Basically, he's obsessed with oil and oil prices. And this is where Iran comes into the picture. You see, Iran is one of the world's biggest oil producers. Despite Western sanctions, Iran supplies about 2 million barrels of oil a day. That's about 4% of the global demand. That's what comes out of Iran. What if the US gets access to this Iranian oil? The American oil industry certainly likes the idea. In fact, they're already dropping hints. Consider what the American Petroleum Institute has said. This is America's main industry group for oil. It represents the country's biggest oil companies like Chevron, ExxonMobil, and ConocoPhillips. Its president is a man called Mike Sommers. When protests in Iran were at their peak, Sommers made a big statement. He said, and I'm quoting, "Our oil industry is committed to being a stabilizing force in Iran if they decide to overturn the regime." Sommers is basically encouraging the US government to attack. It's like telling Washington that if you invade, we've got your back. We can handle Iran's oil. Clearly, Venezuela, with the world's largest oil reserves, is not enough for them. They want Iran too. In fact, the US oil industry is cautious about Venezuela. And this is a country where the US government has control right now. Sommers suggested that Venezuela is, quote unquote, not structurally sound. And why is that? Because Venezuelan oil industry is broken, the infrastructure is decayed. According to Sommers, for US oil companies to return to Venezuela, they need more certainty. He spelled out 3 broad requirements: long-term guarantees, security, and the rule of law. Again, I have a quote. If they get those 3 big things right, I think there will be investment going to Venezuela. Now, with Iran, there is no such problem because Iran is the world's 6th biggest oil producer. It has a structurally sound oil sector. It has functioning wells and infrastructure, and it has the expertise for extraction. So US oil companies can just come in and easily ramp up production without significant delays or investments. And that is why Trump's threats to Iran cannot be ignored. The US president wants low oil prices, the US industry wants access, and Iran has the oil. Does that mean an invasion is inevitable? From Trump's perspective, there are clear incentives for a military operation. But there are clear risks too. Because West Asia is not Venezuela, the stakes are far higher and there is no margin for error. One miscalculation could backfire badly. Oil prices could rise instead of falling, and we have seen this before, by the way. Last year, during the 12-day war, oil prices jumped by nearly 20%. It was brief, but intense conflict. It involved three parties: Iran, the United States, and Israel. That was when the US struck Iranian nuclear facilities. And there was a clear lesson from that war, that conflict in West Asia pushes oil prices up, not down. In fact, US military interventions in this region have always disrupted energy supplies and prices, and the impact has been felt over a long term. Take the example of Iraq. The US invaded Iraq in 2003, and even now, 22 years later, Iraq manages to produce just 70% of what it can. That's because the war damaged its production infrastructure. The same thing happened in Libya. More than a decade since the US strikes, Libya's oil output remains uneven. So Trump has that history to worry about. But then again, he's not really famous for learning from history.
This is News 18 Network. India's largest news network.
Sanjay Kumar, I want to understand from you, we don't really have a template as far as these BMC elections are concerned. Would that be fair to say? Equations have changed so much. There is no way to predict these elections. Is this a psephologist's nightmare?
Yes, it is a psephologist's nightmare. Why? First, if you look at the alliances, so all parties are against each other and all parties are in alliance with each other. So it becomes very difficult how the votes of support base of one party will get shifted to the other, or how it's going to contribute to the other, because two parties may be in alliance in one municipal corporation, but in other place, in another.
In Mumbai, but the exit signs, mind the pun, are on the wall for the Thackeray-led UBT Shiv Sena. How am I saying this? A major pillar of Maharashtra politics is looking rickety. Look at the exit poll projections. From the pollsters, there are 4 pollsters who have come out with projections for the BMC polls. Just look at those numbers. The first column on the left, right by the names of the pollsters, this JVC exit poll, Axis My India, Sakal, and Lok Shahi Marathi. Between 119 and a maximum 141. Axis My India overly compensating the BJP in this exit projection. Polls took place today. And till a certain time in the day, we are still awaiting updated figures. The polling percentage about 41-42%. That was at 3:30. We'll be updating those numbers. But the fact of the matter is, viewers, that the Congress has 23 seats by the JVC exit poll. Axis My India puts it at 14. The last two, 20 and 25. And there you can see, viewers, the poll of polls number. The BJP is at 138, Shiv Sena 59, Congress 23, the other 7, which will include maybe, viewers, a seat here for the MIM or there for maybe even one of the smaller regional parties. That is the scenario, viewers. It's on your screens. Now, viewers, you've looked at the numbers and you can see that this is an expression of confidence from the voters in the NDA or the BJP plus. Don't be mistaken, viewers. The Mumbai election is not merely about potholes and pipelines. It is unavoidably a verdict on the political future of the Thackeray-led Shiv Sena and to a lesser extent the Sharad Pawar-led NCP. A defeat here weakens opposition morale nationally, reshapes alliance arithmetic and tilts the balance further in favor of the NDA. Because here, viewers, in Mumbai, which is the financial capital of India, the BMC is the richest municipality. Its budget exceeds the budgets of certain small countries and at least 6 states in the Union of India. It's a prize, viewers. It's a prestige prize. And after about 2.5 decades, the Shiv Sena is going to make an exit. A fractured and diminished opposition does not merely change electoral outcomes, it also is the quality of governance itself. Because, viewers, what happens nationally? Fewer counterweights against the government at the center means reduced scrutiny, diluted accountability, and greater executive immunity. In that sense, Mumbai's municipal ballot carries consequences far beyond the city. It touches the health of India's democratic polity, which is coalescing around the NDA's pole. Clearly, viewers, there are some takeaways. There are no takers for this great Marathi versus outsider pitch. Mumbai believes it's a city of India. Yes, there is Marathi pride and so forth. You can't abnegate that. But primarily, the instinct in Mumbai is that, look, we are a city of dreams. Anyone from anywhere can come and make it here. And that is being reinforced in the rejection of the Shiv Sena's bitterly parochial politics. BJP's organizational might has delivered. You're going to have a triple-engine sarkar in Mumbai. Thackeray...
So things are poised dangerously. Donald Trump may or may not attack Iran, but if he does, what will it mean for West Asia, for Iran's neighbors, for countries like Saudi Arabia, Israel, Turkey and Qatar? First, let's look at what they want. What do these countries want? Israel's goal is clear. They would like to see the Iranian regime toppled. If the US attacks Iran, Israel will likely join in. But what about the others in the region? Most of the Arab states are silent in public, but in private, they're asking the US to not intervene. Reports say Saudi Arabia, Oman and Qatar have been lobbying Donald Trump. They're urging Washington to not launch strikes. And Saudi Arabia has gone a step ahead. They have told Iran that Saudi airspace will not be used against them. And I know this sounds confusing. After all, Arab states have a long-running rivalry with Iran. Iran is a Shiite country. Most Arab states are Sunni majority, and this has led to decades of Cold War between the two sides. So why are Arab states defending Iran? Because of the risks involved. If the US attacks, Iran will retaliate. They have threatened to hit US bases in West Asia. And where are these bases located? Across Arab states. Look at this map. The US has bases in Qatar, in Bahrain, in Kuwait, in Jordan, in Saudi Arabia, and in the UAE. Meaning all these countries will have a target on their back. And it has happened before. Again, think back to June last year. After the US attack, how did Iran retaliate? By firing missiles at a US base in Qatar. Also think back to 2019 and 2022. Iran-backed Houthis fired missiles at Saudi oil facilities. No casualties were reported, but Riyadh's oil output was affected. And this is a big risk for Arab states because oil is the mainstay of their economies. If Iran or its proxies strangle that, they will feel the pinch. The Arab states will feel the pinch if the oil industry is hit. So that's the first worry. If things go south, they will be caught in the crossfire. Now let's look at the second worry. Even if things go right, there are reasons to be concerned. Let's assume the US topples the Ayatollah and they install a friendly regime in Tehran. That would leave just one military power in the region, and that would be Israel. This is not acceptable to many Arab states. They have seen how rogue and reckless Israel can be. Last year, the Israelis bombed targets in Qatar. So for many Arab states, Iran has been a check on Israel, a balancing factor. If you take that out, Israel may come to dominate West Asia, which is risky for Arab states. We also have some non-Arab players in the mix, and the most important one is Turkey. They too have opposed a US intervention.
We are against a military intervention in Iran. Iran needs to resolve its own internal authentic problems. Of course, there's also the international dimension to this. They must also resolve their global nuclear issues through diplomacy without wasting any opportunity, so that structural problems that cause economic difficulties are eliminated.
So just one country in West Asia wants the US to attack, and that country is Israel. But here's the thing. There is a huge risk involved for Israel too. Again, let me take you back to June last year. Iran fired more than 500 ballistic missiles at Israel. Nearly 50 of them hit their targets. We saw massive missiles slamming into major Israeli cities. And remember, that was not an existential threat to the regime in Iran. Those attacks were aimed at Iran's nuclear sites, and the response was lethal. If the Iranian regime itself is at risk, the response could be even bigger. The question is, can Israel absorb that? Because we're talking about a very small country. Israel is just about the size of the Indian state of Manipur, so an all-out war should worry the Israelis too. And this is just the immediate impact. If the fighting in Iran drags on, there will be more concerns. Iran has long land borders with 7 countries: Iraq, Turkey, Azerbaijan, Armenia, Turkmenistan, Afghanistan, and Pakistan. Iran shares maritime borders with the likes of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And some of these borders are a powder keg. On the Iraq border, there are armed Kurdish groups. In the northwest, you have Azeri Iranians. And in the southeast, you have the Baloch. If the regime collapses, if the Iranian regime collapses, these groups and borders may flare up, which is why most regional powers want the status quo. They may not like the Iranian regime, but the alternative is too scary and chaotic. Now let's talk about US President Trump's latest immigration crackdown. The US government has issued fresh orders, and like always, the impact is sweeping. The US will stop issuing immigration visas, and this will hit 75 countries. The US won't issue visas to people from 75 countries. India is not on that list, but many of India's neighbors are, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Afghanistan. And this is not an isolated move. It fits into a broader shift by the United States under Donald Trump. America's border controls are getting tighter and visa costs are getting higher. And the consequences are already visible. Last year, migration to America turned negative. Experts are increasingly voicing concerns. They fear that Trump's immigration crackdown will hurt America's GDP. Here's a report.
The Trump administration has ordered a new immigration crackdown.
It's phase 1.
And it marks another tightening of America's borders. This time, the focus is on permanent immigration. Not tourists, not business travelers, but people seeking to settle in the United States. Later this month, the U.S. will suspend the processing of immigrant visas. This decision impacts applicants from 75 countries. U.S. consulates have received instructions. They have been told to stop approving or issuing these visas. Applications can still be filed, but none will be cleared during the pause. There is no clear timeline for when the suspension will be lifted. The Trump administration says it wants to reassess procedures and reduce the entry of people. The list is extensive. It spans Latin America, the Caribbean, Africa, West Asia, and parts of South Asia. India is not on the list. At least for now, Indian nationals remain unaffected. But several neighboring countries are included, like Pakistan, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Afghanistan. The restriction applies only to immigrant visas. Temporary travel remains allowed. Tourists, business visitors, and short-term travelers can still apply for a visa. But being excluded today does not guarantee protection tomorrow. Trump's position on immigration is consistent and expansive. This order is part of a broader shift. Earlier, Washington imposed a full travel ban on citizens from 12 countries. Skilled migration has been tightened too. The cost of H-1B visas has risen sharply.
H-1B applicants to $100,000.
Now applicants must pay $100,000 per application. The message is clear. Immigration policy is being narrowed across the board. These decisions carry economic weight. Immigrants form a large part of the U.S. population. Nearly 48 million people in America are immigrants. In 2023, they generated about $1.7 trillion worth of economic activity. They also paid roughly $652 billion in local, state, and federal taxes. Their contributions are spread across sectors: healthcare, technology, construction, agriculture, and services. Without immigrants, the U.S. risks losing a large chunk of its economic output. The shift is already visible. In 2025, for the first time in decades, more people left the United States than they entered. Estimates show net migration fell. The departures range between 10,000 and 295,000. This followed a sharp rise in deportations. There is also a cost to growth. The Brookings Institution has modeled the effect. It believes that reduced immigration could lower U.S. GDP growth. It could lead to a deduction of around 0.2 percentage points in 2025 and 0.1 percentage point in 2026. That may sound small, but for the world's largest economy, it is significant. It could lead to slower job creation, lower output, and weaker earnings. Immigration policy is decided by the government of the day. That authority is not in question. But preparation matters. So does execution, because abrupt shifts carry consequences, some intended, others not. Trump's immigration crackdown is beginning to show those trade-offs.
For our next story, let me start with a picture. It shows two dog sleds with Greenland's flag standing in the snow. Ahead, the path splits in two. One road leads into sunlight and clear skies. There's the White House at the end. The other road turns dark and stormy with the flags of Russia and China. It feels a bit like Robert Frost's Road Not Taken, two paths diverging in the snow. Only this time, the choice is not poetic, it is geopolitical. And if you think this is just a random picture on the internet, we say think again. Because this picture was posted by the official White House account. Let me repeat that again. The White House is offering Greenland a Sophie's choice, an impossibly difficult choice with only bad outcomes. A choice that is not America's to offer in the first place. And that was the crux of a meeting that was held yesterday, a meeting that took place at the White House. Representing the US were Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio. And on the other side were the foreign ministers of Greenland and Denmark. They sat down and they spoke to the Americans. It was a closed-door meeting. We don't know exactly what transpired. When the meeting ended and the ministers left the White House, you know what's the first thing they did? They shared a smoke. That should tell you a thing or two about how the meeting went, although both ministers said that the talks were constructive. But what did they achieve? Were they able to convince the White House? Listen to this.
The discussions focused on how to ensure the long-term security in Greenland. And here our perspectives continue to differ, I must say. The President has made his view clear, and we have a different position. We, the Kingdom of Denmark, continue to believe that also the long-term security of Greenland can be ensured inside the current framework, the 1951 agreement on the defense of Greenland, as well as the NATO treaty.
That was Lars Løkke Rasmussen, the Danish foreign minister. He's a former prime minister and an experienced diplomat. So he's putting it as diplomatically as possible, but it also shows that Denmark is not convinced. They know that Trump still wants Greenland, and all that they can do is appeal to Washington and ask for what they call respectful cooperation.
The Premier made it very, very clear yesterday that Greenland, for the time being and for foreseeable future, will remain within the Kingdom of Denmark, and therefore this is a common position that we want to work with our American friends and allies, but it must be respectful cooperation and it must respect the red lines.
So will Trump listen to their requests? By the looks of it, the answer is no, because yesterday the US President held a press conference at the White House, and guess what he talked about yet again? Taking over Greenland.
We need Greenland for national security, so we're going to see what happens. They're going to brief me on the meeting right after this conference. In fact, the sooner I get you out, the faster I'm going to know exactly what happened. But We have a very good relationship with Denmark, as you know. We'll see. But, we're doing the Golden Dome. We're doing a lot of things, and we really need it. If we don't go in, Russia's going to go in, and China's going to go in.
The same national security pitches back. Trump does not trust Denmark. He says they cannot keep the island of Greenland safe, so he wants Washington to take over. He wants the US to invade an ally and control their land. A journalist pointed this out, and look at Trump's response.
Fought alongside the United States in both Afghanistan.
Thank you for telling me that. I appreciate it. But I have a very good relationship with Denmark, and we'll see how it all works out. I think something will work out. Yeah.
Does it matter to Trump that Denmark fought alongside the US? Well, take a guess. He says something will work out. He's still hoping that he can buy the island from Denmark. And how much would that cost? Some estimates put the valuation at around $186 billion. Some say it could be valued at $50 billion. Either way, it sounds like a deal for the real estate president. The only problem is Denmark does not want to sell Greenland. So the other option is a military takeover. Will the US attack a NATO ally? Will NATO go to war against a member country? Well, we don't know that. But Denmark is no longer waiting and watching. They're arming up. They're boosting their military presence on Greenland. Yesterday, aircraft and naval vessels were deployed. Danish soldiers are moving to the island. The Danish army chief says he's ready to defend Greenland. And that brings us back to that picture that we started with. 2 dog sleds, 2 roads, and 1 choice that is being pushed. Greenland is not at a crossroads of alliances. It is at the center of a power struggle. Robert Frost wrote that the road taken, and I'm quoting, the road taken made all the difference. But in Greenland's case, they may be pushed down a road, and that could change the Arctic forever. Our next story takes us to Nepal. The country is weeks away from a general election, but before voters even head to the polls, a major political rupture has emerged. Nepal's oldest political party has split. It is called the Nepali Congress. The party helped build Nepal's democracy, but it is now divided into 2 factions. Its leaders are locked in a power struggle, and its legitimacy is under question. All of this comes as Nepal prepares for its first election since last year's Gen Z protests. So what does this split mean for Nepal's future? Our next report explores.
For decades, one party has been at the heart of Nepal's political life. Founded in 1950, the Nepali Congress emerged as a central force in Nepal's transition to democracy. It governed through years of upheaval, produced multiple prime ministers, and remained a pillar of the political system. For Nepalis, the Congress was not just a party, it was power. But on Wednesday, that power split in 2. The Nepali Congress fractured after months of internal tensions, just weeks before national elections that could reshape Nepal's future. At the center of the rupture stands Sher Bahadur Dioba. He has led the party since 2016 and served as Nepal's prime minister 5 times. Challenging him was a younger leadership group demanding change. Its most prominent face is Gagan Thapa. He rose politically after Nepal abolished its monarchy in 2008. As General Secretary, he became a leading voice calling for reform and accountability within the party. The dispute came down to leadership and timing. Thapa and his allies wanted Dioba to step aside before the elections in March. They argued the party could not face voters unchanged. Thapa and his allies wanted Dioba to step aside before the elections in March. They argued the party could not face voters unchanged.
We need to change the face of the party that was part of the Palki Sharma Oli-led government that suppressed the youth's agitation against corruption and political disorder so that our colleagues can directly go to the people during the election campaign.
Dioba refused to resign. That refusal triggered a break. Thapa's faction called a special general convention in Kathmandu without the president's approval. More than 60% of elected party delegates attended the gathering. The convention unanimously elected Thapa as the president of the breakaway faction. But within hours, Dioba's camp expelled Thapa and other senior leaders. The Nepali Congress stood divided. Both factions have now approached Nepal's election commission, claiming legitimacy and control of the party's name and its iconic tree symbol. Any decision is expected to be challenged in court. Political breakups, however, are not new in Nepal. Alliances form and collapse quickly, often without warning. A recent partnership involving Rabi Lami Chan and Kulman Gising, for example, did not last even 12 days. This split arrives at Nepal's most volatile political moment in years. Last September, youth-led protests erupted across the country. They were driven by anger over corruption, economic stagnation, and a government ban on social media. Parliament was set ablaze, the government collapsed, and the political mood shifted. Now, that anger meets the ballot box. General elections are scheduled for March 5th. They will be Nepal's first since the protests and will be held under an interim government. As the vote approaches, tens of thousands of young Nepalis are lining up for temporary jobs as election police.
I am jobless and learned about the vacancy announcement from the government. I am here to apply for the job so that I can do something for the country.
So, some of the same generation that protested in the streets will now help guard the polls. This is Nepal today, a country caught between its past and its future, preparing to decide what comes next.
Sanjay Kumar, I want to understand from you, we don't really have a template as far as these BMC elections are concerned. Would that be fair to say? Equations have changed so much. There is no way to predict these elections. Is this a psephologist's nightmare?
Yes, it is a psephologist's nightmare. Why? First, if you look at the alliances, so all parties are against each other and all parties are in alliance with each other. So it becomes very difficult how the votes of support base of one party will get shifted to the other, or how it's going to contribute to the other, because two parties may be in alliance in one municipal corporation, but in other place, in another district, they may be fighting against each other. So it creates a confusion among the workers, it creates a confusion among the voters. So will the vote get transferred? But I think the bigger nightmare would be that the size of the constituencies are very small, much smaller than the assembly constituency, and assembly constituency is much smaller compared to the Lok Sabha. So the margin of victory and defeat are very small, and sometimes you might get the vote share right, but since the seats maybe a large number of seats may be decided by small margins, you may get it off, you may be off the mark when it comes to seats. It is happening quite often these days in the Lok Sabha election. It happened in 2024 Lok Sabha election. It also happened in large number of state assembly elections which we have witnessed in the last couple of years. So that's why BMC election or the municipal election are much more tricky to predict compared to an assembly election.
Right. In fact, let me go to the ground in Mumbai. My colleague Aman is also joining us from there. Aman, which way is the sea breeze flowing this evening in Mumbai?
Well, see, Shivani, it is very difficult to predict an election, and I won't hazard a guess till the results come out tomorrow. But if I tell you what are the issues on the ground and which are the big factors in this election, the number one factor, I think, is the Thakre brothers uniting. Whoever I've spoken to in Mumbai, people, especially in the constituencies where the Marathi community is in larger numbers, even in South Mumbai, people do have this emotive and people do have a connection. People speak fondly and this nostalgia about the Thakre brothers coming together. It's also a last throw of the dice by the Thakre brothers in a sense that they have faced serious reverses in the 1.5 years back when we had the assembly elections here. So they need to perform here. Can they win the election? I am not too sure. But if they perform well and be a strong opposition with about 70 to 80 seats in the 227-member BMC, that could be a strong comeback by the Thakres. Will it happen? We'll have to wait till tomorrow. I think the number 2 issue is the Marathi Manus issue. You know, in the last election, we have seen that in fact the majority of Marathi Manus had voted for the NDA, and that is why Eknath Shinde emerged
in Mumbai. But the exit signs, mind the pun, are on the wall for the Thakre-led UBT Shiv Sena. How am I saying this? A major pillar of Maharashtra politics is looking rickety. Look at the exit poll projections. From the pollsters, there are 4 pollsters who have come out with projections for the BMC polls. Just look at those numbers. The first column on the left, right by the names of the pollsters, this JVC exit poll, Axis My India, Sakal and Lok Shahi Marathi. Between 119 and a maximum 141. Axis My India overly compensating the BJP in this exit projection. Polls took place today. And till a certain time in the day, we are still awaiting updated figures. The polling percentage about 41-42%. That was at 3:30. We'll be updating those numbers. But the fact of the matter is, viewers, that the Congress has 23 seats by the JVC exit poll. Axis My India puts it at 14. The last two, 20 and 25. And there you can see, viewers, the poll of polls number. The BJP is at 138, Shiv Sena 59, Congress 23, the other 7, which will include maybe, viewers, a seat here for the MIM or there for maybe even one of the smaller regional parties. That is the scenario, viewers. It's on your screens. Now, viewers, you've looked at the numbers and you can see that this is an expression of confidence from the voters in the NDA or the BJP.
Now it's time for Vantage Shots, images that tell the story. India celebrates Army Day with a grand parade in Jaipur. US Secretary of War Pete Hegseth and Japan's Defense Minister trained together with the US Army's Old Guard. And NASA's Crew 11 Dragon splashes down upon returning to Earth. Finally, we are taking you back in history. On this day in 2001, Wikipedia was launched. It's an online encyclopedia, free for all. The name is a mix of the Hawaiian word wiki, which means quick, and encyclopedia. As of 2025, Wikipedia had 66 million articles and in 300 languages. We're leaving you on that note. Thank you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.
भस्म करे भारत की पवित्र धरती से उठ बड़े ही शान से सलामी मंच के सामने से गुजरता हुआ
for protection of own critical assets and ground forces against war
की कहानी एवं भारतीय सेना के परफॉर्म से ट्रांसफॉर्म को सहारा देते हुए आप देख रहे हैं, जो बता रहा है कि आज जन जन से जुड़ रही है भारतीय सेना। लहराता तिरंगा कैमरा से लैस दुश्मन की साजिशें नाकाम करते हैं। बड़े ही शान
I want to understand from you, we don't really have a template as far as these BMC elections are concerned. Would that be fair to say? Equations have changed so much. There is no way to predict these elections. Is this a psephologist's nightmare?
Yes, it is a psephologist's nightmare. Why? First, if you look at the alliances, so all parties are against each other and all parties are in alliance with each other. So it becomes very difficult how the votes of support base of one party will get shifted to the other, or how it's going to contribute to the other, because two parties may be in alliance in one municipal corporation, but in other place, in another district, they may be fighting against each other. So it creates a confusion among the workers, it creates a confusion among the voters. So will the vote get transferred? But I think the bigger nightmare would be that, the size of the constituencies are very small, much smaller.
Hello and welcome to the late night edition with me, Ayushman Singh Jamwal. Big breaking news coming in on the top of the bulletin. This is concerning the Sanjay Kapoor inheritance saga, where Priya Kapoor, the third wife of Sanjay Kapoor, has now approached the Supreme Court seeking certified copies of all documents related to the divorce proceedings between Karishma Kapoor and Sanjay Kapoor, which took place